Hello YouTubers, Jim from Ohio here with the next video in the series of building my solar evacuated tube oven. If this is your first time tuning in, please check the video description down below and I'll give you links to the first couple videos in this series that shows you how we got to this point where we are now. Now, this point, or this part of the video, I'm going to say that it's optional. This is something that you don't necessarily have to have as part of your oven. But the reason that I wanted to include this is I've seen hundreds of videos where other people have built a similar oven using the solar evacuated tubes. And one of the things that they never mention in their videos is when their oven is not in use, where do they store it or how do they store it? Obviously, it's a glass tube and it's fragile. So you have to worry about, you can't really just throw it in a closet or stick it in a drawer or anything like that. Because if you're tossing stuff on top of it or you're bumping it around, there's a good chance that it's going to get broken over time. So I wanted to eliminate that possibility. So I wanted to put together a way that that we could store it away when it's not used, or if we want to use it out in the field somewhere, we want to transport it. We've got a good, safe way to do that so that everything is enclosed that we need. It's safe, it's in a sturdy container, and it'll be good to go when we get to the point where we need to use it again. So that's why I came up with this video that I'm sharing with you today. So you don't have to do this. The oven will work if you go with the previous video and then continue on after this video when we get into building the reflectors and start putting the oven into use. We'll build the tray and all of that. But this part of the video is highly recommended. I encourage that you do take these instructions, but I'm going to call it optional. You really don't need to do this. So we're going to do our best to try to save a little bit of money. And so one of the ways that we're going to save money is within this storage case, we're also going to build the rack that this oven is going to sit on when it's in use. And there's no cheaper item out there for something like this that's durable, that's waterproof, rather than just regular old PVC pipe. You can get a 10-foot section of, this is half-inch PVC, Schedule 40 PVC. Virtually every hardware store in the country or big box store sells this stuff, so you shouldn't have any problems finding it. If you pick up a 10-foot length of this, it'll probably cost you about $2.50. And that's exactly what you need. One 10-foot length is going to give you enough with some left over for what we're going to do today. Now, the other thing that I'd like to tell you about PVC, that I see a lot of people on different YouTube videos, when they get PVC and they're doing anything with PVC, the first thing they do is they get out a hacksaw or even a handsaw and they start cutting it. Well, that works, and if that's all you have to cut it with, go ahead and do that. But the fastest way, the cleanest way, the way with the least amount of mess, because that plastic sawdust it goes everywhere. It sticks to everything. So the easiest thing to do is just get yourself one of these. This is a PVC cutter. You're going to see this in a plumber's toolbox. These cost anywhere from $8 to $14, $15. But once you have one of these, you're going to find you got all kinds of PVC projects are just going to be so much easier to do because you're not using that hacksaw or handsaw. And these things almost melt right through the plastic. Usually you take your plastic, you mark it wherever you want. The nice thing about this is you can put it right on the mark. The PVC just simply sits down inside of it. You ratchet it down right onto wherever your mark is, and then just squeeze it a few times, and in no time at all it'll cut right through the PVC. Now the other thing, you don't have to worry about getting a crooked cut. You know, virtually every time you're going to have a perfectly straight cut without that plastic sawdust mess. So you can pick one of these up at your local hardware store, Home Depot, Lowe's. I'm going to also include a link down below in the video description on where you can get one of these if you want to pick one up on Amazon. I'll include the link down below for that. So get yourself one of those. Pick yourself up a 10-foot length of PVC, and let's go over all that you need to do for cutting the PVC. I'm going to give you down below in the video description, I'm going to include a cut list basically of how many of each item and what the length of each item is. I'll post it on the video as a subtitle on the video so that you can see it here too, but it will be down in the video description as well. And then we'll talk about the toolbox that we're going to put it in next. So as far as the PVC goes, now we are not going to use any PVC glue or any adhesive, any kind of PVC cement on this. For our purposes, we're not going to put this under pressure. We're not going to be carrying any water through it. So we're just going to slide it together and everything will fit together by friction. Everything's going to fit nice and tight. It shouldn't rack or come apart later on after we got it together. So don't worry about buying any glue. You're not going to need it. So the first thing that you're going to need to do is you're going to cut the legs that we're going to use. And for mine, I cut 4 12-inch lengths for the legs. Now, I would recommend that you don't go any lower than 4 feet. And the reason for that is when it's sitting in our toolbox, the whole rack's going to remain in our toolbox all the time. We want to be able to raise the tube up far enough out of the toolbox so it's convenient to use. Now, you can go longer if you want. I wouldn't go so long that the legs are no longer going to fit inside the toolbox. You also need to take into consideration the balance point. I mean, the glass tube has a little bit of weight to it. The toolbox is going to be a counterweight and be able to hold your tube and your frame in place. But if you start getting too high above the toolbox, you may run into a risk of everything tipping over on you, or if a gust of wind comes, it may tip over your entire toolbox, and you don't want that to happen and risk breaking your glass tube. So you can go 14 inches, 16 inches. I really wouldn't go too much higher than that. If you get too high and you notice your point of balance is off, you can always, while the oven is in use, maybe put a rock or something down in the bottom of the toolbox just to counterbalance it and keep things from tipping over. But 12 inches is what I use for the legs. So you're going to need 4 legs that are cut 12 inches in length. And then just starting from this side, the pieces that we'll cut, you're going to need 2 inches or 2 pieces that are 5 inches in length each. You're going to need 2 pieces that are 16.5 inches in length. You're going to need 2 pieces that are, I make that 4 pieces that are 3 3/4 inches in length. That's this piece. It is 2. I've changed this so many times I've lost track, and we'll go into the reason why I changed the configuration a couple times. That's going to be 2 pieces that are 3 3/4 inch lengths. That's right here and right here. And then you're going to need 2 1 7/8 inch lengths, and that's right here and right here. In addition to that, you're going to need 4 T connectors. That's these pieces right here. And you got one of them right here, one of them right here, and then one right here, and one right here. Then you're going to need 2 of these 4-way connectors. Now these 4-way connectors are a little bit harder to find. I will include links to all of these parts down in the video description where you can get these from Amazon. But some hardware stores, I think I found some of these at Menards, but at Home Depot and Lowe's, I could not find the 4-way connectors. But you are going to need 2 of those. So that is the cut list. And this is the layout of how these are going to be. So just put these pieces together just like this. And I'll show you how it looks in your toolbox. Simply slide them together. Now we are going to squeeze things tight later on when we put it into the toolbox. Now the two T connectors that are in the middle, you're going to want the post part coming up because that's where your legs are going to go. So we're going to have our two legs there. This T connector goes there. That goes there. That goes there. Another T connector with the opening upward. Just like that. And now you may be asking, why am I putting a T connector on the end when I don't have another piece off of it? Now, at one point in time, one revision of this frame, I did have other pieces that were there, but I found they're not needed if you go with the same toolbox that I go with. So once you have the legs standing up, your frame is all together in one piece ready to go. Now, you may be tempted to change this in some way, but I'm going to encourage you to go with exactly what I have here. And the reason for that is later on when we start putting our pieces together and we go into putting the tube into storage, you're going to see that there's a reason for this configuration so that everything fits nice and neat into the toolbox. So I'm going to go ahead and set the frame aside for now. We'll come back to it here in just a couple moments. And I'm going to bring the toolbox into the screen. Okay, the toolbox that I'm using, as you can see here, it's a Craftsman 28-inch toolbox. And I picked this up at Lowe's. You can find these also Home Depot, Amazon, various online outlets will sell those. Now, if you're not able to find the Craftsman brand, you can also go with either the Stanley model or you can go with the Dewalt model. All three of those manufacturers are made in exactly the same warehouse somewhere in China, and they are exactly the same toolbox. They just have a different label and maybe different color water seal gasket around it. But these are all the same size, so you should be able to go with any of those. But you do want to go with the 28-inch toolbox. Now, the tube itself, you remember our glass tube is a little less than 23 inches. But if you go with a toolbox smaller, like you're tempted to buy the 24-inch toolbox, you're going to find that your glass tube doesn't fit. And the reason for that is all of these toolboxes have a recessed portion on the side that I guess this is like a carrying handle underneath here. And because of this recessed portion, you're going to lose about 1.5 inches on both sides of the toolbox. And so 1.5 inches on both sides, now you're down 3 inches. So that puts you, it's a 28-inch toolbox, so that puts you a little less than 25 inches. But because it's tapered at the bottom, you lose a little bit more, and just everything, you're not going to want to do it. You're going to risk breaking your tube. So all of these toolboxes do come with this tool insert. We're not going to use that. Put it aside, use it for just whatever else you may have need a tray for. But you'll notice inside of here, I do already have another frame that I've already set down inside there. And you can see that if you build the frame the way that I mentioned, it fits in there. It's nice and tight. I can remove it, but it fits once we get it all pushed down in there. Now, you may have to really squeeze your PVC tubes together if you've cut things exactly the way that I mentioned. But if you do that, it's going to fit in there nice and tight. Now, over on this side right here, you'll notice that's where I had those two T connector, or the portions that there was no PVC on this end. Now, I found that I didn't need that because there is a lip inside of the toolbox that the outside edge of these connectors will rest on that. And so if you want to cut an extra small piece to fill in that gap, you can, but I found out it just was not necessary at all. So once you have your toolbox and your frame in the toolbox, now you're going to take your legs, and I might need to adjust that camera a little bit more. Give me just one moment here. Okay, you're going to now take your legs, and these are just painted black. I just did this as an experiment. You don't have to paint it black. At one point in time, I had the whole frame painted, but these legs are just going to simply sit down inside of here, just like the previous ones did. And so once you've got those in there, you're going to take your pieces that we printed out in the last episode, and those will simply slide down onto the legs just like that. And you're good to go. You're ready to put your tube in here. Now, if you've done this and you followed my measurements, these will be at the perfect distance apart from each other. That's going to come in for our next video where we make our reflectors that go onto this. So at this point, you can go ahead and slide your tube in. Now you will notice that these wobble a little bit. They're not sitting on the legs really tight. Now there's a reason for that. At one time, when I first made these pieces on the 3D printer, I made them so they were exactly the same diameter as the outer diameter of the PVC tube that we use. But then I found when you go to use this, you're gonna, for storage purposes and putting this together, you're gonna be lifting this off of the frame, putting it onto the frame. And if you're lifting and balancing the glass tube and this, the last thing you want to do is try to balance that and pull PVC tubes that are tightly fitted into this, and it was just cumbersome. I was worried I was going to drop something. So what I did, I went back and I redesigned these pieces so that the openings are a little bit larger, so that it just sits right onto the PVC tube. Everything fits nice and neat. They are loose, so when I go to store this away, I simply lift the tube and both pieces off together, pop the legs out. The legs go down in the bottom. The tube goes down in the bottom. You'll see that in an upcoming video. But that is the safety case. With that said, I invite you to, if you haven't already done so, please click the bell and the like icon down below. Be sure to come back and join us. And in the next video, we're going to be putting together the reflectors that are going to help us capture more sunlight for our solar cooker. This is Jim with Jim Jenny, Ohio. Thanks for watching, and we'll catch you on the next video. Take care.